You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Welcome to Marvel Makeup. I'm Quincy.
And I'm Kay, and this is a podcast where I teach Quincy a little bit about Marvel.
And I teach Kay a little bit about makeup.
Watch out, there are MCU spoilers ahead.
Tons of spoilers.
And today, our guest is an actor, director, comedian, and educator. He's held numerous residencies through Richmond, Virginia, and Los Angeles, and was awarded honorable mention for excellence in theater education by the American Theater Wing for the 2019 Tony Awards.
And in 2018, he was also awarded the Second City Hollywood Bob Curry Fellowship. Please welcome my best friend, Donzell Lewis.
Donzell Lewis.
Sorry, Kay, went off script.
Welcome, Donzell. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. You know, this is Marvel and Makeup, and I should have done better with communicating with you through email, because I guess we should mention that I'm also a drag queen.
Oh,
and
yes.
This is a Makeup and Marvel show.
Award-winning drag queen.
Yes, so many
I read the bio. I was like, oh, that's fine. Yeah, I've done all those things.
well, I mean, which was, we knew that. So so no, we're mentioning it now, which is why you're a great guest for Marvel Makeup.
A booked and busy drag queen also.
B and Bead.
B and Bead. Ooh, I like the sound of that.
And well, in terms of the Marvel portion today, we are talking about Black Panther, which was directed by Ryan Coogler, and which he co-wrote with Joe Robert Cole, and was released on February 16th of 2018. If you don't know, Ryan Coogler also directed Fruitvale Station and Creed. So those were some of his other movies. To get you into the mindset of what was happening in 2018, Black Panther, obviously a record-breaking movie because of the all Black, all African-American cast. So there were other very big milestones for the community as well that year. For example, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry got married that year, which was pretty substantial. But Beyonce was the first Black woman to headline Coachella in 2018. And also the Obama portraits were revealed that year, which gave the National Portrait Gallery the first paintings that were painted by African-American artists, as well as Jordan Peele winning for the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, and Childish Gambino coming out with This Is America.
Wow.
So a lot of achievements in this year when Black Panther came out.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I remember all of those things, but I don't. I remember them all as if they were almost spread out over 5 years.
Same.
Because there was so much stuff. That was all 1 year.
That was all in 2018.
Wow. I just can't believe Meghan Markle's only been married to Prince Harry for 3 years. It feels like it's been longer.
I mean, they talk about it so much.
I just can't believe that I have not met and married a prince similar to Meghan Markle and her story. I don't understand. If she can literally find a prince, why can't I?
It happens all the time in Netflix holiday movies. So it's how come that just doesn't happen? I feel like that's all the time thing.
You have to move back home. You have to move back home for Christmas and be I don't really want to be here. I have to be here, but here I am. That's the key.
Yeah, you have to be a success.
Prince magically shows up.
Yeah, in your hometown.
Because a snowstorm hits and he gets stranded.
As long as it's a real prince, I don't mean the American romanticized, Prince Charming. No. I mean, she married a literal, legal prince.
Dude's got a castle.
Yep.
Yeah, dude's got a castle.
She's a literal princess, an actual princess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess not anymore, but she was for 3 years.
Right. Until the Great Escape. which was
Is that what they're
more.
calling it?
I don't know. I just what that I called it right now. Yeah,
I'm gonna call it that from now on too.
Okay, go ahead. That for now, forever shall be known as The Great Escape. Yeah, and just a few more things about the movie in general, just because it was so record breaking for Marvel, for the box office. It grossed over $1.3 billion worldwide and broke numerous box office records, becoming the highest grossing film directed by a Black filmmaker, ninth highest grossing film of all time, third highest grossing film in the US and Canada, and second highest grossing film of 2018. Received numerous accolades, including 7 nominations for the Oscars, including the first nomination for Best Picture for a superhero film. And actually
That's
won.
Pretty rare, right, for a superhero movie to get nominated
first time
for an
ever.
Oscar. Yeah,
they never nominate superhero movies. I remember there was one year where Hugh Jackman hosted the Oscars, and it was the year Iron Man came out. And in his opening sequence, they mentioned that. Like there was literally like a segment of the song. They're like, "How come comic movies never get nominated?" And like they made jokes like that was the year The Reader came out with Kate Winslet, and everyone was just like, "Oh, The Reader! Everyone is nominating The Reader." And then, did anybody actually go see The Reader? Probably not really, but everyone saw like Iron Man like a bunch of times, and it came out in the same year, but no nominations for Iron Man. That was also the same year Dark Knight came out, and no nominations for Dark Knight. So that's why Black Panther as a superhero film getting nominated for Best Picture was record breaking, and it actually won Oscars for Best Costume Design, Best Original Score, and Best Production Design, as well as 3 Golden Globes, 2 SAG Awards, and 3 Critics' Choice Awards. So, like our illustrious guest, award-winning, very much award-winning guest and award-winning film.
I want those awards.
But honestly, when I was reading your bio, obviously you were listing all your awards. I was like, there's so many awards here. I need to find another word to use for like award winning. so the bio can be more varied up.
That's the problem. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, this is just. Someone just recently called me award winning, and I was like, have I won any awards? And it was like, I haven't won. Wait. Why is this? Anyway, that was just me being like the opposite of Donzell, being like, no awards. Sorry, did you go ahead?
I was going to say, but it makes it so hard in my dating life because my dating profiles, I can't make it simple. And I don't want to sound, I don't want to sound really like obnoxious. So everyone's always like, you need to be more yourself and like, don't hide this part of yourself, don't hide that part of yourself. I'm like, but there's so many different parts of myself that it's like a big list. Like I'm an educator, an actor, an activist, a drag queen, a martial artist. I've done such, I've done this. And then it's like, well, what is it that I do? Who is he?
Your bio is just saying, I am everything.
This is redundant, but it's like the Billy Porter of entertainment, which is like very redundant because Billy Porter also does everything.
And he is being Billy Porter of entertainment.
Yep. That's true. Have you guys seen, a little bit of an offshoot, but have you guys seen, what's that movie? Boss, where it's like Rose Byrne and Tiffany Haddish, and he's like their assistant. Oh, I forget what it's called. It's like Boss something. And Salma Hayek is in it. He has this awesome moment where like spoiler alert, they like fire him because they're getting bought by Salma Hayek's company, and she's like, you have to fire so and so, and Billy Porter is one of the people they have to fire. And they tell him,
boss, is that what it is? Like a boss?
Like a boss. Yes. They tell him in this restaurant. And that moment is like so funny and so epic because they try to they tell him and they try to kind of backtrack and be like, but we love you, but it's because of this and this. And he's just like, witness my tragic moment. And he gets up from the table, like super dramatic, and like eyes them the whole time he's walking outside of the restaurant. It is.
I love it.
If you haven't seen that movie, watch that movie. It's kind of it's a fun, silly movie. It's not like groundbreaking, but like for that moment, like it's totally worth it. I request that people watch it just for that moment. So yeah, small little bit Billy Porter tangent. But speaking of epic, awesome, talented people and movies in movies and films, this is my segue attempt. Black Panther is what we're talking about today. Donzell, tell us, what is your take about Black Panther? What is your relationship with Marvel in general? What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, this is great. I sound like I just sat down for a job interview. As long as you don't give me that question of like, what is your greatest weakness?
Oh, gosh.
Like,
and how did you overcome it?
Oh.
Do I have one of those? No. Okay, so oh gosh, let's talk about my relationship with Marvel first. I am a huge Marvel fan, but I am very new to the Marvel universe.
Okay.
I feel like I like to say I dibble and dabbled. I watched, the beginning of the Marvel life, right? When Iron Man came out, like I remember watching that. I remember watching the earlier movies, but never really becoming a follower of them. So at some point when it became like the Marvel, the MCU universe, when that happened, I had no idea that was existing.
Okay.
And then I watched Avengers Endgame. No, not Endgame. Which one? There's 3 Avengers, right?
I think this is why me and Dee Dee are friends.
As of now, there's 4. There's Avengers. 4? Yeah, there's Avengers. There's Avengers Age of Ultron, and then there's Infinity War, and then Endgame, which is the second half of Infinity War.
Okay, that's the one. So I watched the first Avengers and never really remembered it. Never watched the second one. And then at some point, I like in 2018 or 2019, I watched Infinity War. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to see Black Panther, like I saw Black Panther when it came out and everything, because like I had to go see it. But I still wasn't like a follower of Marvel. I just was like, it's Black Panther, I'm going to go see it. So I watched Infinity War somewhere along then. And I was like, holy this is good. I was like, I was like crying at the end. And I'm like having all these emotional reactions. And like, what am I witnessing? Like, what is this? And I was like, what is going on with these stones? And this man just comes in and he just quick. Sorry to interrupt, but like, no, Quincy, you have seen Infinity War? Or you have not yet?
I have not.
She has not. So we're trying to not spoil her.
So no spoilers.
We're trying to only watch them in order.
You said spoiler alert.
Oh no, the spoiler alert is for everyone else but me.
We're trying to keep Quincy in the dark as much as possible since we're watching them in order.
But nothing nothing you said is anything new. Like it's about people looking for stones.
So funny.
Yes, it's true. There are stones. There's this guy. Okay. Yeah.
And I just remember I was like, wow, this is really great. And I teach elementary school theater, and one of my parents works with Marvel in a big way, like a legit, really big way that I had no idea until I like talked to him about it, because I was like, and I just talked to him about it because I knew of his roundabout connection with Marvel. So, I was like, oh my gosh, I just saw Infinity War this weekend. Like, what is this stuff? It's so brilliant. And we had this beautiful conversation about how he was comparing the power of what's happening with the comic book stories as being comparable to what happened with Greek mythology. And how the Greek mythology, they became, these powerful stories that permeated through, generations and about these beings and our connection with them and their connection with us. And, and how really that's what's really happening. And I think that's also part of why there's like this big resistance to Marvel and to any comic book stories and people saying, is this real art or are these real movies? I think there's a resistance because they're not understanding that. I agree with that parent that what's happening with Marvel is they really are creating a new dynasty of literature that is becoming timeless.
I agree.
That is represented, but I didn't realize that until I saw Infinity Wars. And that's when I was like, this stuff is legit brilliant. And I had never been someone who was like anti-Marvel, because, there are anti-Marvel and anti-comic book people out there, like anti- Whoa. And I'm like, okay, what happened to you to make you like be so resistant? I just was like, it is what it is. But after Infinity Wars, I was hooked. And that's when I was like, I need to go down this universe. I need to go down this rabbit hole. Okay. So then I started.
Did you go back to the movies before?
Yes, but then I started watching them in a roundabout way, and I just wasn't really able to give full commitment to it until the pandemic hit. And then the pandemic hit, and then I was like, Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1. Or no, I did the timeline order on, like how they have it. I was like, starting with number 1, Iron Man. And so I've been going through, since the pandemic, I've been going through watching them in order. And even today I watched Ant-Man.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm at in the timeline order. But in a roundabout way, I've seen all of them except for maybe like 2 or 3, but I just didn't understand the story that they were connecting. And until I saw Infinity Wars, then of course I started to go back and watch them in order, and I've seen Endgame and everything. So like I just, the only thing I need to do now is literally just watch them in order to see how they complete the story, because it's so brilliant what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is I feel like what's great about these movies is I think the reason why some people are anti-Marvel is because when you might see a Marvel movie at some point down the line that isn't one of the stronger ones, and you're just like, I don't see the big deal. But once you find one that really like resonates with you, like that can cue you into being like, this is connected to a larger story. So let me go ahead and give the rest of them a try. And when you see them in kind of like from that bigger perspective, you can kind of appreciate it more because of all the different connections.
Yeah, I totally agree. As well as I think also when you watch a Justice League, not a Justice League, when you watch a DC movie, and they're just not as well done. And so I think if you can see an average like Marvel, and then you see a DC, and you're like me, you're hopping around, you're like, what's the big talk about all this? But then once you start to see, like you said, you see those really good Marvel ones, and you're like, this is the blueprint.
Yeah.
Well, I will say
you can't get it.
For DC, for a little bit, when Christopher Nolan did the Dark Knight trilogy, it looked like DC was like really pushing ahead. And then I don't know what happened. Maybe Kay, but then after that, it was like nothing. And then Marvel really picked up steam and then figured its voice and brand out. And then now it feels like for DC, because I love the grit and edginess in DC comics, but it seems like rather than figuring out what they want to do and how they want to do things differently, they're trying to do what Marvel is already doing.
Yeah, they weren't doing that like overall universe at that point. Marvel definitely kind of attempted to do that first in kind of the cinematic way. They were doing that kind of in the TV universe, DC, in terms of like Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl. Those shows were actually being interconnected, but not in the cinematic version. So yeah, it's interesting to hear people's different entry points into it. Because me, similarly, I watched the movies. I remember seeing Iron Man in the theaters, but I didn't really pick up on it, the MCU of it all, until the first Avengers. When I saw the first Avengers, I was like, I'm in. Because I really like like the team ups. But not to dissuade us from a bigger Marvel conversation, but this is the Black Panther episode. So
yes.
So I know you guys, didn't you go to the Hollywood Bowl, Black Panther?
Oh, I went. Dee Dee was not available, but
she didn't tell me until after.
But we did go to the premiere together, or not the premiere, when it opened, we went together. It was a whole.
Yeah.
Oh, originally the theaters. Yeah. Oh, great. So what's your take on Black Panther?
So Black Panther. My take on Black Panther. It's hard because Black Panther had so much to accomplish, and it did. And it's hard to contextualize, and it's hard to say into words what it means to me and what it means, I think, most people of color, especially African Americans, because we grow up in a society where we are given so many white heroes and faces that just do not look like us, that are and they go back for generations, and they are in all these different mediums. These heroes never really look like us, and oftentimes the characters that do look like us are secondary or tertiary characters, or the villainous characters, or somehow they're the characters of a degenerate stance oftentimes as well. And so what happens is you're being pushed this narrative, while at the same time you're being pushed that narrative, you know it's not true, and you're growing up in a different way with your own heroes and your own stories and your own Black Hollywood movies and films and TV shows. And so it's this split duality, right? There's this half of you knows that this pushed force narrative is not real, and then the other half of you has actual icons that you can look up to, but they're not given the same limelight as the others, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, take, for example, you have freaking Angela Bassett and Black Panther. Like, that alone meant so much to us, because Angela Bassett is just as good as someone as Meryl Streep. She's just as good. She's just as iconic. She's just as legendary. But some people just found out about her through Black Panther, where she plays the mother, which it's a great role, but it's not an Angela Bassett role where it's like Angela Bassett can carry a movie. You know, it's like
eat that shit up.
You eat that shit up. Like, of course, it's a huge role because it's Angela Bassett. The fact that it's Angela Bassett is what makes it a huge role. But if you think about it, the mother of T'Challa could have been anyone. That role could have gone to anyone. So it's like, even in that situation, you're like, y'all missed out. Like, we're honored to have like Queen Mother. She legit is Queen Mother in so many ways. But y'all need to understand, Queen Mother has been around for years and is fierce, right? Yeah. And
the larger community just has been snoozing on her. Yeah.
Well, and I will say, like, you know, I've seen this movie probably 3, not as many as some of like my favorite Marvel movies are like the team up movies. So like, you know, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Civil War, like the kind of bigger ones. So I've only seen this one probably like, you know, 4 or 5 times. But I will say, from the jump, you're just like, man, this cast is so stacked, you know, just every single person in front of the camera. You're just like, oh my gosh, just such, you know, there's like a plethora of riches just from moment one, like Sterling K. Brown, first, you know, that first scene in the movie. I mean, he makes me cry, and This Is Us all the time. So I don't know if that was just like a natural reaction to be like, he's on screen, I'm going to cry. But like, for him to,
and that's the thing, though.
Yeah,
like you said, a plethora of riches. Like that's the best way to describe. I feel like Black Panther for me is because it delivered on everything, and it delivered on everything exceptionally well. It was culturally rich with our culture, both in our entertainment culture, like you said, like Sterling K. Brown, Angela Bassett, Forrest Whitaker, Lupita Nyong'o, Chadwick Boseman. I mean, like, the list goes on. And the legends that it has started to birth from that, the newcomers, you know, who Winston Duke, who was the Jabari leader, and now look at his career, right? Like, it also launched careers. You had Michael B. Jordan, like, so you had that culturally, rich, but then also you had the cultural history in there, and you had the mythology, the African, the mythology going on, and you had the wardrobe stylist going back and pulling out African images and bringing that into the wardrobes and costume and making it rich, and even the music, that moment when they're like on the boat and the drums are playing, even in those subtleties of like bringing in the drums and what the drums meant to us and what they still mean to us, right? And you have the story of also the inner city and the kid's not having someone to look up to. And then you have the beautiful moment at the end where, the little boy is talking to Chadwick Boseman, and like you see in his eyes the same thing that we all saw, which is like, wow, we finally have someone to look up to. We finally have our hero. We finally have our Captain America, our Superman, then
for me, like a king of men, a king of superheroes. Like I remember seeing, like, after the movie came out, like people, they did this thing on like Jimmy Fallon where like people would they had like fans stand in front of like a picture of Chadwick Boseman and like talk to the picture about what Black Panther meant to him, and then he would come out like after they were like done talking, and they would like freak out and be like, "Oh my God, I'm surprised." I remember one of the king, like straight, one of the fans straight was like doing the Wakanda symbol and be like, my king, like that straight, like, when you think about creating like what Marvel does, creating a mythology, creating kind of like its own, myths and kind of like canon that people can believe in, like they pretty much created like a dynasty and like a monarchy that, people of color were just like, here's, screw King of England, King and Queen of Wakanda. Like that's that's the royalty that I will be following stories about, through, through the line and through culture.
And the beauty of that is like, it was mythology based in fact, where there were many African dynasties, and they are often not talked about in history because we painted, especially in the Western hemisphere, we've painted this savage image of Africa, or this poor image. We've created that narrative when that narrative is not true today, and that narrative was never true. And that's also one of the things that I loved. It's like, I remember in school when we would talk about the ancient, the historic civilizations of Africa and the rich, kingdoms that were there, how they would get glossed over. And so then, like in this movie, when they're telling the story of Wakanda, I literally flashed back to being in school and being like, wow, how nice would it have been to like really have a full painted picture like this is being painted. And this is being painted in fiction, but it's still based off of, inspired by the realities of what did exist in Africa. And what still does continue to exist. That's why so many colonizers went to the continent and took not only the riches and the fortunes, but also eventually the bodies, right? And so that's one of the things that I loved about how the movie also had the subtleties of social justice. So in that movie, in the first part of the movie, when Killmonger is in the museum, what a powerful scene. First of all, you have, it's so multi-layered. First of all, you have them mentioning, I remember when I did my ancestor DNA, I was like, I wonder where I'm from, right? And one of the places was Benin or Benign. I know it's pronounced differently. I don't know the correct way to pronounce it, so don't come at me, y'all. I hear both. But it's Benin or Benign. And I remember being like, what is that? I never heard of that African country. Like, wait a minute. Like, I had to Google it. And then come to find, I had to Google like, oh, this is a real place, is a legit place that exists, And then in the movie, when he brings up that the artifacts were from the Benin, era, and I like heard that word, I was like, wait a minute, that's my like bloodline. Like, oh my gosh, that's where I'm like part of where I'm from. That's the majority of like my bloodline. is like 50% from there, right? But I love how in the movie, that's again, like how many people I wonder walked out of there not even realizing that that's a real place. That was a real place.
Yeah.
They just thought it. I wonder how many people thought about this and was like, oh, well, they're just making this up. But like the truth is, it's like, no, artifacts were stolen from Africa. And one of those countries was Benin or Benin, where they stole a lot of slaves. Like that's a huge part of the beginning of the slavery happened in that area.
Yeah. And
it's also why I love they mention that country, because it was because of its connection to slavery like that. And the realities of how much was stolen that created this unfortunate disparity. And they mention that in the movie when Killmonger says, there are people that look like us all across the world.
yes.
And there's one reason why there's so many of us all across the world like that. And it's not because most of us decided to go out and explore.
Right.
But not only are most of us like this, all of us that look like this all across the world, but most of us that look like us all across the world are hurting because we've been put at such a disadvantage and cut off from our roots and cut off from our ancestry. And not only cut off from it, but had it retrained and oftentimes beat out of us.
Yep.
And so,
just ourselves, not only ourselves removed and taken, but that part of ourselves removed from us, not only us, ourselves physically removed,
our
but
religion,
us emotionally, spiritually. Yep.
Exactly. Like taken from us. And and then you're in this museum, where this white woman is curator
and educating him.
And educating him. But not only is she curator of this exhibit, but like she's educating him when, first of all, like, where is the Black curator?
Yeah.
Like that scene was so intentionally done, because how often across the world is that the reality that when you go into these museums and you walk in, and unless it's an African-American history museum, if there's oftentimes the curators are all white and the docents are all white. And then they lead you through these various segments of the museum that have many different segments of color from many different civilizations. And they're telling the Black and brown folks about their history. And knowingly also, whatever they're telling is what they've decided is worthy to be shared.
Yes.
And many times they are getting it wrong, like that woman got it wrong and how Killmonger had to like correct her on it.
Listen, I'm thinking about how I had one class in high school and it was called Eastern Studies and it was taught by a white woman. And yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's interesting. But it's not, what I like about that movie is like that movie is more than entertainment, right? Like that movie was activism at the same time. And it was it was making a comment on that existence of the problem of education, with there not being enough cultural diversity in education that is, one, being taught by instructors of color. We need more instructors of color. And we're talking about all the different types of education. Like it may have been in college, like Quincy's college class. It may be a docent at a museum. It may be an elementary school teacher. Where are the teachers of color?
Yeah.
And then also these stories, who's choosing what is and is not added into the history books.
Yeah. And who gets to decide what the curriculum is, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that movie, that one segment is like 5 minutes. And I'm just like, that's right. But you know what I mean? Like it unloads so much while at the same time it's doing so much. It's educating, it's inspiring, it's advocating.
Yeah. And then it's also meanwhile setting up his character and this story for what's to come.
Yeah. And and entertaining,
exactly.
And doing it
and entertaining it in an exceptionally well way.
Yeah. And in a powerful, inspiring way versus, kind of the more, kind of like darker ways in which like like people of color's histories are covered, which just like it's all about the trauma and all that stuff.
It's called deficit framing from my job. Deficit framing is when you like call something or someone or a country like poor, like, oh, and then forever the way you see it is just poor because you've framed it in a deficit versus I forget what the opposite is, but if you do it the opposite way, it now leaves so much more potential for the imagination to the possibility of what this thing, person, or country can be.
Interesting. Well, and I think they obviously create that image with Wakanda, them having, vibranium and the technology and the ability just to be this really, futuristic, advanced society, though hidden. And to me, this movie, stands out for so many ways, but I feel like it's the first movie in the MCU, and we're in middle of phase 3, where it's really about something. It's about society, and it's reflective of kind of like how people see themselves and how society sees themselves. Whereas most of the other movies, they're reflections of different types of characters that are kind of archetypes that you've kind of seen, throughout culture, throughout mythology, throughout pop history. But I feel like this one specifically was like, we are speaking to you now where you are at. And, we're applying this superhero story to kind of your experience. And like I said, just a plethora of riches in terms of the talent, all headed by Chadwick Boseman.
We can leave out the power of women in that movie as well.
Oh, I mean, the Dormelage. I mean,
come on.
When I came out of that movie, and I felt like a kid coming out of a movie where, when kids, I remember when one of the first Spider-Man came out, I saw it in the theaters, and with like people I think I was in college, and one of the guys like who was a big, kind of geek, but he like came out of the movie all excited, acting like Superman and going like pew 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 pew, like he was a kid again. When I came out of Black Panther, I was like, I was like a kid, like I am a Dormelage, like I have my spear. I'm like,
yes.
Like it was so, just to see women of color being so strong was so,
and they were his equal.
Yes.
They never, even in that situation where even, the general, when she has that moment with Lupita Nyong'o, and she's, they're arguing, and she says that my loyalty is to the crown.
Yeah. To the throne. Yes.
To the throne. And, but even in that moment, and even in the moment with Lupita Nyong'o at the end, where she's like, she wants to serve her country, and he's flirting with her, and he's like, well, I mean, why don't you stay? And I know another way. Like, I was like, okay, all right, King, you got me. I'll stay. But even in those moments with both those women, it was their choice. They never in that moment were they saying that they were lesser than. They were choosing to take those secondary roles because they knew that they were the best in that position to make the country the best that it could be, which in essence means that they knew that they were his equal. And he treated them as his equal. He looked at them as their equal. And the history of all the kings before him treated them and looked at them as their equal, knowing that we are not successful without them.
Yes. Yep. And I mean, even in the first scene, it was just like, Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nakia, she's mad at him. She's like, you've ruined my mission. This was my thing. And here you come in trying to find me. And the fact that she has taken her taken her power and taken what she wants to do and kind of wants to make a difference in the world and is going out and doing that. I thought that was so different compared to kind of like the female characters you've seen before that. And just, to lead off of that, Letitia Wright as Shuri pretty much had some of the best lines for me. One of my favorite. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yes.
One of my
Yes.
favorite scenes in this movie, even though it's like not one of the big epic emotional, but the scene in her lab where he comes back for the first time. Yeah, where he kicks the suit. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And then she's like, "Okay, hit it again, and I'm gonna record." And he was like, "What are you doing?" Like that. I mean, and also just a different take on like the powerful woman. You know, she's powered because she's a genius. She's pretty much smarter than like Tony Stark and, you know, Bruce Banner combined. And she does it with this, you know, fun, like kind of like sarcastic, playful attitude. And yeah, so, you know, another facet of that kind of like strong female character that we haven't seen before.
Yeah. I think that's the challenge and the cross that we bear as artists of color, right? Where I love this movie, and I think you would be very surprised to find many people who don't love it. I feel like mostly everyone who watched it also loved it. But that the cross that we bear as artists of color is that how many other Marvel movies, and you hinted on this a little bit, Kay, how many other Marvel movies had to do so much, in so many different layers, and do it so well. And so it's like, not because this was our shot. Like when you let's take it to Hamilton, I'm not throwing away my shot. Like the entire, you know, community of artists of color who were engaged in this script, in this movie, from behind the camera to in front of the camera, everyone knew that this was their shot. This was our collective shot. And we had to go in there and break that glass ceiling so that way it shattered completely. And it did. And it's like Hollywood can never revert back. And if they do revert back, they're in some big trouble. But they can't revert back because we shattered the glass ceiling with this movie. It was more than just a good movie. Yeah. And how many others had to be more than just a good movie?
Right. I mean, we've seen, Quincy knows, so we've seen a bunch of the Marvel movies, and there were some that were just like, okay,
really long.
We get this, we get it, we get the character, we got it, but you know, why this one, okay, yeah. I mean, it's all connected, but yeah, to have it was like this
excellent on all fronts. And like you said, Dee, like we're not afforded the same privilege as having like a first movie or a draggy, a movie that drags and like everything has to be a full meal. But I think that just makes us better as artists of color because we're at a higher standard.
Definitely.
Which is why I want to make a quick shout out. I know it's not time yet, but that's why people need to go see Shang-Chi, because watching it, I was like, yes, another one where it is shattering the glass ceiling.
Yeah, we saw it together.
So many different fronts. It was so exceptionally well and so rich in so many different layers as well. Yep. I was like, artists of color are doing it. So
now give us 10 more. 10
exactly,
more.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't let this be the only one.
Exactly. Give us so many that by the 20th one, we're just like, that one was okay. And then it's fine. And then they still can give us more, you know, allow us the privilege to have an okay one.
Mediocre.
Mediocre. You're right.
But that's.
Yeah.
But in fact, don't get me started on that. The myth of like the narrative of the excellence factor within communities of color. I think that the excellence factor is oftentimes a direct example and influence of white supremacy and American white supremacy with its patriarchy.
Yeah.
Because this idea that we have to be 3 times as good or 2 times as good in order to succeed was and is unfortunately true. But what that has done is it's also created this disparity now, saying that if you are not of this excellence and of this caliber, then you're not to be seen and recognized.
Yeah,
We're
you're
only
not.
going to see and recognize Black excellence. Then that comes down to the idea of like, well, what determines Black excellence? And
Yeah,
is Black excellence, who determines that? And is my Black excellence being determined because I'm succeeding in a white world, or because I'm succeeding in challenging the white world, which both ways is basically whiteness controlling the narrative of what Black excellence looks like.
And then it goes
Black
back
excellence
to,
has to be determined within our community.
yes. And then it goes into, if you think about it, like, then if there is an idea of Black excellence and that's like defined to be one kind of way, if you don't fit that mold, it's another way to gatekeep Black artists, artists of color who don't fit that.
Yeah.
Right. Like
so we have our Black Ivy League schools, you know, we have our Morehouse, we have our Spelman, we have our Howard University. But are you saying that if you went to another Black university that was not of that quote unquote Ivy League level, does it not count?
Yeah.
Are you not of that excellence?
Yeah,
people want to recognize that, right? Like people want to recognize, like Kamala, our VP, came from Howard, which I love. Like, and I have a lot of friends who came from Howard. But how many people know about the other Black universities and colleges that are not at Howard's level? But because we now got our VP, now we're hearing about the words, right? So it's very interesting is what I'm saying. Like, I definitely think that, you know, we all deserve the right to be our average, mediocre selves and still succeed.
Yeah, we deserve to be enough, I think.
We deserve to be enough. Yes.
Yeah. And the fact that the idea of excellence and the idea of having to be like, I remember being told like 110%, like not just 100%, 110, which, you know, is mathematically wrong.
Especially
right.
like
that's not,
it doesn't exist.
That doesn't, yeah,
doesn't exist.
On a scale of 0 to 100, 110% is wrong.
Yeah.
Is unbalanced.
And
you know,
I was going to say, like, the mind fuck it does to you when you're at 103%, even though it's mathematically wrong, right? Say you're at 103, but then you're like, shit, I'm not 110. I'm just not good enough. Like, you could be 97% good, better than, but because you've been told, and I remember being told that, right? Like, you got to be 100, do 110 better. So then it's just like, okay, so I didn't do 110, but if someone were to like actually look at what I did, they'd be like, oh, but you did 98.
Yeah,
like,
but that's still very strong.
But that's not 110.
Exactly. And it also creates this like unfair competition within the people of color communities
like
because
only one spot.
Exactly. Because it's just like, okay, we all know that we have to be 110% comparative to them, which means there's only one of us who can allowed to be that within ourselves. So it's this like weird kind of like cycle, but at the same time, you're just like, you feel like the need to kind of like celebrate it as much as the excellence as much as possible, just so it can just be like, get it out there, make sure it's still, you know, seen and we have the shine and we are visible, you know,
which to tie it back to Black Panther, because it's the Black Panther episode.
Yes.
That's one of the thing that they did well in this movie is all of the Blackness of all levels was celebrated. None of them were put down and put over top of each other, and they all were celebrated. They all were given its full glory, and it was shown in everything that it was all enough.
Yeah.
And there were so many wonderful characters, right? Like everyone in their job was doing a great job. There wasn't like, we just only have this king who's really good. Everyone in their job and all of the various different tribes were all equally good, saying, but we're just choosing to make him king.
And no one was wrong too, either. Like everyone had their differences, but no one was better than or less than or wrong.
Mhm.
And no one, like, in previous movies, no one had that kind of like one dimensional mindset of just like, I want to conquer, this is because of my pure ego. I want to possess and conquer and win. Everyone had a justification and a relatable reason behind their commitments and their mission. And like, for example, you had M'Baku, Winston Duke's character, who even in his he would, in the beginning, they're set up as kind of like the outsider tribe. By the end, he comes back and they have their whole reasoning of just like, I remember that great line of just like, no one's come here for some hundreds of years to our village, and now you come speaking of us, like stuff like that, where you're just like, yes, that's their perspective. And so many of the characters had their own philosophies that they played off of each other, which they've done it in other Marvel movies where the villain is kind of like even as strong as the lead. And I definitely feel like Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, does that with his justification of, him wanting to just, liberate his brothers and sisters across the world with Wakanda technology.
I wonder, do you think that, oh man, I wish I had been at that table read. That table read was fucking epic. And I wonder if there's footage of it on the internet somewhere.
I'm pretty sure there is, because I'm pretty sure that table read before they got read was like an hour of everyone loving on each other. Because there was so many different, so much. It was just so rich with so much history of so many generations coming together to make.
You have the people, the younger people who looked up to the older actors who they've watched growing up, and then you have the older people seeing the younger people coming up on their come up in a huge big way, and then you have like not the newbies, but the people who are like less known, who are then being brought into the fold by the people who have bigger names. Oh. Gosh.
Yeah. And you definitely got that feel of like everyone knew this was a mission that they would have to dedicate themselves to. And they were all on board with what they were doing, because they knew how they knew how special it was, because they literally were probably looking around and be like, it's never like this. It's like that Black Lady sketch show sketch. Have you seen that? Where it's like Black Lady courtroom, and they're all just like, they're all Black ladies in a courtroom. And as they're walking in and seeing that they're all Black ladies, they're like, hey, girl, how's it going? Like, they're all happy about it. Because they're like, is this summer like this? So I agree. Marvel released the table read cut. Like this, if they can release, if a studio can release the 5-10 hour Snyder cut, we can release the Black Panther table read cut. Please. Just some final things to mention. You have your classic Stan Lee cameo in the casino, where he takes the chips, and then some fun after credits with Black Panther going into the United Nations and being like, we're opening ourselves up, and then being like, well, what's that? What are you really gonna be able to do for us? And them just smiling. I was just like, oh, so sweet. And then at the end, you have Shuri helping out Bucky, who has been in Wakanda this whole time, and kind of setting up the next movie where they all come together, which is going to be Infinity War, which came out right after Black Panther. So any other final thoughts on Black Panther before we transition to our next segment?
Just that, Ryan Coogler, let me cast me in part 2.
Yes. If you want the award-winning Donzell Lewis, who is
degree
everything,
martial artist,
yes, in Black Panther 2 or 3 or 4 or as many as we can get in there. Get them in there. So that brings us to the end of our Marvel portion. Let's go ahead and transition into our stretch and share. I believe. Do you remember?
I have a stretch.
Okay, great. Quincy has a stretch.
Not like a exact not an exact stretch, but it's more like a simulation. Let's give ourselves our.
No one told me about that.
Oh, we do a stretch and share between segments where we take a little break. We're gonna just give our scalps a nice head massage.
Okay.
And Dee Dee, do you want to lead a share? Do you have a share? Or do you need some time to think of a share?
I need some time. This was not in the email. I got it. Y'all put me on the spot.
I didn't send the initial email, so it's usually in mine. I can share though.
Oh my God, look at my hair.
Yeah, I'm not doing mine too deep because mine has mousse in it. I bought a new couch. We've been as well.
I've been ready to buy a new couch. Where from?
Living Spaces. It was pretty.
I was just looking at Living Spaces too.
Yeah. It was on the cheaper side. It was actually like an outlet couch, but our old one was getting super uncomfortable to the point where like the springs were like jutting into our butts, and like I couldn't sit on it for more than like an hour at a time. So we did get a new one, and it's good. It's soft and firm, but not too firm. I will say though, I think it's setting off my allergies because like, it comes wrapped in the big plastic and the cardboard, and you kind of have to like unwrap it and stuff like that. And, it had kind of the warehouse type smell. But it's kind of been we've had it only for like 3 days, and it still kind of smells. And I realized that like, I've been using it, but then when I would come into the bedroom, like my head would kind of like lighten a little bit, like it would ease a little bit. So I think the warehouse smell of the smell that's coming off of the dust. The dust and probably like the being wrapped in plastic smell is maybe setting off my allergies a little bit. So I need to give it some time before I totally kind of dig into it and like sit on it for hours on end. But yeah, so that's my share.
I love that.
Donzell or Quincy, your shares?
I have a share.
My share. Oh,
go ahead, Dee Dee. Go. No, you go.
I bought an air fryer. That's my share. Oh my gosh. The hype is real. If you don't have an air fryer in your life, you are genuinely missing out. I resisted it since the air fryer craze. I'm at the end of the air fryer like fad, where like basically everyone has one now, and I see why. Totally.
So what have you put in it? What's your best?
Oh my gosh.
Thing to cook in it?
I don't know my best thing to cook in it yet because it's so new. I'm still experimenting. But so far, I have baked. I cooked a steak in it.
Oh wow!
And it was so great because yes, you can.
Like from raw?
It just and got it medium well, like I like it.
Yeah.
Which is, I do really well. I do love to cook my steak on a cast iron skillet, and I do love that. But the challenge with that is like, it's such a heavy process, right? And the smell and the oil and the butter, and I love all of that. But your house smells like steak, or my apartment, because especially as a smaller apartment, so you have the steak smell permeating for so many hours afterward. So cooking in the air fryer, though, like I just don't have that smell, and it also is just so much quicker, and I could just like literally set it and forget it, right? Like set the timer, walk away, come back, flip it, then continue it, or keep cooking your other stuff. But yeah, I've cooked steak in it, chicken in it, like little chicken wings in it, bratwurst the other day. Today I used it to make my bacon while I was making pancakes. I've done my veggies in it, my broccoli, my Brussels sprouts, my carrots, like. Oh, don't get me started. And I'm just a baby. I'm a beginner.
All right. The air fryer hype is real. I heard that I have an Instapot and I don't use that much, but I heard it can be used as an air fryer. Yes, so at some point I might attempt that. It's just, it's really dirty because I haven't used it in a while, but we'll try to get around to it.
That's great. Point. For the tray I don't know if the Instapot has a tray, but for air fryers, how it has the tray. I wrap that in foil.
Oh, okay.
So that you can just use it a little longer, and you can keep the tray clean.
Yeah. You kind of like, it has like candles, and I think you put it in. It was like so it's like a basket.
Oh no, it's like a the thing is a basket. It pops out like a container, and then on the bottom it's like a removable flat portion. So
you're talking about the air fryer or the
yeah. So I don't know if Instapot has it, but for the air fryer, in case you're cooking something with oil, it has like a little drip pan. You can use the drip pan. I always cover the drip pan with foil. Tip.
Cleaning tip.
So it doesn't crud up the tray.
Cool. What's your share, Quincy?
I started Squid Game on Netflix. It's a Korean dark comedy from Netflix Korea. And it is very dark, but very funny and very entertaining. And it's very bingeable. They've written it to be incredibly bingeable. I watched the first 2 episodes and then thought about it the whole night. It's very, they make it for you to sit and like binge the whole thing. And it's great because, yeah.
What's the premise?
The premise is, it's so good. The premise is he's essentially a gambler. So he's a Korean dad, like just a loser gambler dude who doesn't have any good money sense. And he pretty much gets the offer of a lifetime where if he can play this game for 6 days and survive, you can win like $46.1 billion.
Ooh.
The catch is you're playing those games with other gamblers, right? Who are also equally in debt / there is a kill component to it. So, so you don't know what it is. It's kind of like, I guess, Hunger Games, but like with people who are not heroic and like the worst kind of people competing for money. And it's very dark and it's very funny. And it's like, the games they play are children's games. So you have like full grown adults, and then the consequences, if you don't finish, you can get killed.
All right. Good. Would
recommend.
Reference. Good recommend. Well, that brings us to the end of our stretch and share. So now we're going to transition into the makeup portion of the podcast. And today we are talking about exfoliating.
Yes. And in addition to the many things he already does, Donzell also is a skincare guru.
Yay.
Back in the day, he worked at, can I tell them?
Of course. Again, people are going to be like, what does this man do?
Everything.
Hire him.
He does everything.
He's so talented, multi-talented, multifaceted. He also used to work at Sephora, so he knows about skincare.
Okay. And so the thing is, lately I've been coming in with like looks, like with a full face look to kind of evaluate what I've learned. But today I have no makeup on since we're talking about skincare, and I have a lot of spots. So I am all in on figuring out a regimen for myself and learn about exfoliating because I feels I need it. If you can see.
We all need it. But that's the thing. It's like we all need it. And I love skincare. Skincare is one of my favorite things.
Same.
Especially when you like tie it into self-care, right? And I realized like I fell off of my skincare regime when I fell off of my self-care regime, when I stopped paying attention to myself and started like focusing on so many other things, because unfortunately that's the dark side of being someone who does so much is you get caught up in the busy factor, busy. And then sometimes you just neglect yourself. And then once I got back into it and realized like, oh my gosh, like I forgot how therapeutic this is and how peaceful and just like beautiful this is to me and my soul. Yes, it's giving me benefits of helping my skin be healthier and look healthier, but ultimately it's doing so much more for just my inner like peace. And yeah, I love me a skincare.
It's also nice to see, like with skincare too, you can see like results in a few days or a week if you just up it a little bit.
I like all of that. So let's dig in.
Oh my God.
We want to talk about specifically exfoliating first.
Yes.
Okay.
Feel free to give me all the context. Like,
okay. Do you want to go first? I have like the textbooky stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. We can just jump in and out. Like we can tag team this.
Great.
You're absolutely right when you say, okay, which is like you have to find a skincare regime for yourself, right? So that's the first thing you have to understand is everyone has to understand regimen. They have to have their skincare routine. It's just like a diet. It's just like working out. You can't always feel like if I'm chasing the fad or chasing what's happening on Instagram, and because this person's using these products, their skin looks like that, that's going to work for me. Or this person's washing with this skin face wash. It doesn't always work like that. Just like if Quincy is on the keto diet, and I'm like, oh, let me do keto. And then it doesn't work for me, but maybe I do better on, the Mediterranean.
Figure out what's good, what works for you.
You have to figure out what works for you. Which is a trial and error process, as is life, right? You try something, it works, it doesn't work. So yes, figure out what works for you. What you need to do is you have to figure out what your skin type is. Are you oily? Are you dry? Or are you combination? Are you a combination skin of oily and dry?
Sensitive.
Right? And you're sensitive. Yes, because that's going to affect the products that you buy and the products that you use. If you're sensitive, you're going to want to go with hypoallergenic products. You want to go with products that are using no allergens and perfumes. A good brand for that is Clinique. Clinique is actually great for sensitive skin because they don't put in extra stuff in their products. And they use to create products so that way all skin types can find a product for them to use.
I generally, though, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Dee Dee, but I generally have been more interested in just doing sensitive skincare across the board. I think my skin can actually handle a lot compared to a few girlfriends. Some friends I know, they try something new, skin has an immediate flare up. But I feel like just being gentle on our skin, especially because we're young, my facialist talks about some of the harsher treatments we don't need to do because the harsher treatments are for people with acne heavy skin or older skin where the epidural is not as thin. So
I agree. And that's how I was taught in regards to, look at skincare, let's compare it to the Marvel universe, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 is your younger skin, where your younger skin, you have to be really protective of it because your younger skin is still developing. You are still developing. That's why so many people who have acne can get on a product and it ruin their skin actually, because it's too harsh for their product. And their skin is so young and
so
it's still
overreact to protect
exactly.
it.
And that's not just always teenagers. That can sometimes be someone in their 20s because their skin, they haven't really developed a routine for it yet. So when you're in a younger phase, you don't have to put in all these heavy creams and heavy products because your skin just doesn't need it. Yeah. And it's too much for your skin. And then you have your face,
a heavy cream, and it was actually causing more spots
breakouts
and breakouts and blackheads because my skin didn't need it. So the cream would just kind of sit on my face and then clog pores.
Exactly. And you have phase 3. Someone who's younger, do they need to be on La Mer? No, they don't need to be on the La Mer face cream. Why are you buying that expensive face cream, that heavy face cream? You just go get the good old Clinique. You'll be all right. You're 21. You don't need to be using something like La Mer. Yeah. Not yet. And then you have your phase 2, which is somewhere around my age where it's okay, now I do got to start getting a little bit more detailed about my skincare. I got to do more than just wash my face, put a lotion on it, some sunblock and exfoliate a couple of times a week. I got to get targeted serums. I got to make sure I'm using the right eye cream. I got to start noticing that my skin is changing into a maturing skin. So now I'm going to start having areas that I want to target, whether it's my expression lines or my, the creases that come from just years of smiling, right? Now I have to start to target that. Then you have your phase 3, which is your older, your elderly. So you have to put heavier products on just because in life at that age in general, you're going to have to do a lot more, right? At some point, I'm going to have to be drinking an Ensure. I don't need to be drinking an Ensure right now, though. So, you know what I mean? That's, and look at skincare like that. Someone who's, 21 just grabbing Ensure versus a muscle milk. What are you drinking the Ensure for? Unless you really, really need to, because everyone's body is different and someone's doctor may have said you need to be on Ensure. But you would look at someone who was 21, walking down the street drinking an Ensure, are you not getting all your nutrients, right?
Probably not, though.
Probably not, right? Maybe I should have drank some Ensures in my 20s. So you definitely, those are, I think, skincare basics, right? Those are things you want to know no matter what product you're looking for. What is your skin type? And then you start to figure out like, okay, now I know my skin type. Now let's look at the product. So today we're looking at exfoliators, not face lotions or eye creams, all those other things. We're looking at exfoliators and the purpose of them. So the exfoliator, oh, go ahead.
Which really quick, just if you don't know, it's just for the audience or people who don't know, it's a process where you remove and slough off your dead skin cells. And then your dead skin cells are the reasons why you may have clogged pores, blackheads, spots. And if you exfoliate and get rid of the dead skin cells, it also allows toners and serums to penetrate your skin.
Okay.
And those are the vitamins, the medicine for your skin, right? That's what you would look at serums for. So you have a specific issue, there's a serum for that. You said you have spots that you want to get rid of. There are serums that will target that. Yes, there are face lotions that will help. There'll be, combined face lotions like a brightening face lotion or something like that. But specifically, whenever you're feeling like I have this one specific issue, I'm pretty sure there's a serum that will target that, whether it be anti-aging, whether it be dark spot removal, whether it be helping with hydration if you're really dry. You want to find your serums because your serums are like taking your vitamins for your skin issue, right? With your exfoliator, like Quincy said, that's one of the biggest, those really are the two biggest things. Like one, it makes it so that when you put on your vitamins, it's getting all of it or much more of it than it did if you didn't exfoliate.
It's kind of like if you had dirty laundry on your floors and you're trying to like Swiffer your floor, right? Like the dirty laundry is going to get in the way, but if you pick up and remove all the dirty laundry and then you have an open floor space, you can now Swiffer.
Okay. All right. So exfoliating is cleaning up the floor before the floor of your face before you Swiffer it with the serums and the toners.
Yes. And there's two kinds of exfoliants, right? There's chemical exfoliants, which have BHA or AHA. So it's like a peeling mask or a peeling gel you can apply. Like it's like applying like a lotion and it'll like kind of break down the dead skin. Or you can use a physical exfoliant, which is with a washcloth or what I have here. It's a rice soft scrub mask wash off or like a sugar scrub. So you would apply it and like manually rub your face with it. This one has like little rice beads in it and or like a brush, like a Clarisonic brush, which would help slough off that dead skin cell.
Yeah. And I want to throw in there, maybe there's 2.1 types of exfoliators, or maybe, this one is also part of the chemical exfoliator family, but there's enzymatic exfoliators, and that might be part of the chemical exfoliator family. But your enzymatic exfoliators, think of them as like your chemical exfoliators is your, a chemical process. And then you have your enzymatic, it's like buying at the grocery store organic, right? So enzymatic would be something like pumpkin, like a pumpkin fruit exfoliator, a fruit. And that the particles of that, when it's on your face, eats away the dead skin cells. So it's doing the same thing as the chemical ones, but instead of it being a chemical product that's been developed or whatever, it's inorganic, it's a fruit, it's papaya, it's pumpkin, it's something like that that's eating it away.
Okay. And so now, starting off, I'm me, and I'm not sure like what my exact skin type is. How should I approach exfoliating?
You would want to, I would say, go with a chemical or enzymatic exfoliator.
Okay.
And the reason why I personally like both, and I do both in the same week. One at the beginning of my week, I'll do one or the other. At the end of my week, I'll do the other. That's
so
just me.
You exfoliate twice a week.
I exfoliate twice a week. That's my process. I think everyone should exfoliate once a week for sure. But if you're really on your skincare and if your skin really needs it, if you're like an older person, exfoliate twice a week. If you're in phase 2 or phase 3, if you're younger, once a week is probably good for you. If you're new to skincare or if your skincare is really sensitive, your skin is really sensitive, you don't need to do twice a week. Everyone needs to start with once a week. I know my skin, so twice a week for me is really good.
On the flip side, for me, I would say for Kay, the opposite. I would tell her to go sensitive just because she's so new to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those sensitive.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant.
Yeah.
Oh, so you think the chemical ones are more sensitive than the physical ones?
If you're getting an enzymatic one. And that's what I was going to say from there. So I would go on the sensitive route and I would go with an enzymatic. There are, I forget the product names, but I'm going to think of it. There's ones where it's a little powder and you put a little bit of water in your hands and you put it on and then you let it sit on your face and you massage it and push it around. So it works almost like a physical one. It's like a combined. It's because the little powder is working as a physical one, but also what the powder is, it's enzyme. So it's also eating it away at the same time. So you have something like a Kate Somerville, erratic. Is it Eradicate? No, Eradicate is in the product. There's Kate Somerville that she has that I don't remember the name of it. Y'all skincare like junkies out there, don't be mad at me for not knowing all the names of these products. But people will be like, "That's not this." But she has one where you put it on and you let it sit and it eats and you wash away, it eats it away. That one's a little bit of a rougher enzymatic one. But you have something like the Tatcha, Tatcha.
I don't know.
Tatcha. It's a rice enzymatic powder. And what happens is that one is gentle and soft while also doing both the physical scrub while also eating away with the enzymatic part of it. That's what I would recommend for you. And I would actually recommend that product as well, or something very similar to it. Shiseido, I think, might have another one similar to it. Those products came from the Asian skincare market, the enzymatic powders. And then other people started doing them. The reason why I like those products is because what ends up happening is people don't know that if you get a physical scrub that you haven't really vetted, it can actually create many tears in your skin.
This is true.
Your skin.
Don't
so I always
with,
recommend
walnut shells in it because those things, it'll be micro. It'll feel like sand.
Exactly. And a lot of people will go get these products at your local pharmacy that they make in these big batches to sell across the world, right? With all these different products in it and parabens and chemicals and things to make it last and stand. So I don't buy any. I am a huge... I'm going to get in trouble because someone might want to endorse me, give me an endorsement deal at one point. At this phase in my life, I'm a huge advocate of not buying skincare from the major pharmaceutical companies because they are made for mass production. I'm a huge fan of going to your local skincare store, like at Sephora or Ulta, and getting those smaller products that have been oftentimes been bought out by the bigger companies. People don't even know that. They've been bought out by those larger, companies, but they're still allowing those smaller companies to create the products that they create because those products are being created with more detail and care and initiative to creating groundbreaking work for skincare. And they're oftentimes better for you. Now, most people will go to any store and say, okay, I need to exfoliate. Let me get this apricot scrub. And then they'll put it on their skin and it's really harsh and it's really big and it's creating many tears and they don't even know it's creating these many tears in their skin. So that's why I'm always not a fan of telling someone to go start with the physical scrubs because I can't guarantee that I know I'm not going to be there with you. And I can't guarantee that you would be able to pick up the right physical scrub that's not going to be one that actually is more abrasive to your skin than helpful to your skin. And just because you scrub in your face and you feel like you scrub in your face, you feel like you got sandpaper, you're like, oh, it's sandpaper working. Your face is not a wall. You are not supposed to be sandpaper in your face. Exfoliating should not feel like you have sandpaper in your face.
Oh, that's the other thing is that I think some people think like for skincare or like even like brushing your teeth, like you need to be hard and rough for it to work. I think kind of like with Kay, when you were talking about makeup, like thinking that like the makeup has to look makeup-y for it to be wearing makeup, for someone to be wearing makeup. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. And actually I've done that. I've just gone to like, pharmacy or, drugstore and just like, oh, scrub, especially when I get like these kind of like, these spots that are kind of like, I get kind of very like deep, pimples and spots. So like they're not close to the surface. So, but they feel like very pressurized. So I would use like anything that said scrub. And that
like
it felt
something that feels like it would like attack it, right?
Yeah. And just like
and a lot of people do that. And that's why I don't recommend the physical scrubs. Now, after you've done skincare for a while, and you've done your research and you start to figure out your favorite brands and you're getting used to your skin, because your skin is just like, once you start taking care of your skin, just like when you're taking care of your body, you start to figure out what works for you, what your skin likes, what your skin doesn't like, right? And then I would say start to go to a physical one if you're like really starting to get into exfoliating. But I will say 3 brands that I would recommend that you check out for sensitive skin and for someone who's starting, and these are not endorsed by these companies. Yeah. No.
we are not a skincare makeup professional. We are not dermatologists. These are just friendly recommendations.
These are friendly recommendations, and that is right. Do not be coming at me. I am not giving you a prescription. I am not an expert for your life. I ain't even an expert for my life. First Aid Beauty is a very gentle line, and they have a full assortment of all types of products for various different skin types. Very great for sensitive skin. Another one is Boscia or Boschka. I don't know how to say it. Bosca, I think, or Boscha. Might be that one. Again, great natural products, sensitive. And another one is just having this slip. Well, I already gave you Clinique. Clinique is great because it's hypoallergenic. Boscia, yeah, Boscia. Clinique is great because it's hypoallergenic. And there was another one I couldn't think of that I just lost.
We mentioned Tatcha earlier.
Yeah, I think that was the other one I was going to say, and you can get Tasha. And you know, those products, they're really good, and they've been vetted. They've been around for a while. They've got great products. They've also got products that people have been inspired to create. You know, Boscia was one of the ones who came up with this makeup breakup oil and using this face wash that's an oil that goes into a deep, removing in the makeup. And then all of a sudden after that does so well, everyone's creating these makeup removing oils, right? Like, I
would like to also add Soko Glam to the list. It's not a brand. It's a website where you can get all your Korean beauty product needs fulfilled.
Oh, great. And the other one is Korres, Korres, I think. And they're a Greek company. Again, great for sensitive skin, for people that has lots of different products in there. And you'll find some good stuff that won't ruin your skin. And if you get the wrong product, it definitely won't. And, I shouldn't say it won't ruin your skin.
It won't harm your skin.
It won't harm your skin that I'm aware of. Let me say that, because again, I ain't being held accountable and liable. But those are some of the product lines that I would say. So I would say for UK, once a week, exfoliate. You definitely want to start with once a week.
Middle day.
I like to do night because I feel like it is a part of my self-care routine again. And it's something that helps prep me for bed, because then the night that I do my exfoliators are often a night that I do masks as well. And I do serums, and I do serums every day, but let me put it like this. Oftentimes the night that I do my exfoliator is when I am doing a 20, 30-minute skincare process at minimum. We're talking, I'm going to wash my face, I'm going to exfoliate, and then I'm going to do a mask, then I'm going to do another mask. And then if I really feel kinky, I'm going to throw in a third mask. And then I'm going to throw in my serums and then my face lotion. And then I'm going to take myself to bed.
And part of the reason you do, you give yourself your skin extra TLC when you exfoliate is because, again, you've sloughed off a lot of dead skin, and so now that's exposed, and you have this fresh baby skin, and you want to just drown it in moisturizer, so it's nice.
So I'm gonna pour everything up in that.
And then you do it at night too. It helps because then you have all this product on your face, and when you go to sleep, your skin at night regenerates and it's working on building all that up. So it's able to, while you're resting, it's able to absorb that. And
so the mask is the more medicine, right? I always thought masks were
the
like a washer. Oh,
Serums are more matte.
Oh, so you're thinking like a mud
Masks?
mask, Kate?
Yeah.
Like there's different kinds of mask. A mud mask you can put on to like clean, and then you wipe that off because it's done like a deep clean of your face. But then there's also the Korean sheet masks, or you can do like a mask in terms of like a heavier cream, and like it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a mask, like mask. Yeah.
So think of your mask as a treatment.
okay.
Right? Like,
could you
your
use it
serums
after
you
you
can use every
exfoliate?
day. Yes, your serums you can use every day. Your masks are something like your exfoliators, where you only want to do a mask once or twice a week, depending on your skincare needs. You don't need to be doing a mask every day unless you're doing a different type of a mask every day. Maybe one day you're doing a hydrating mask, the next day you're doing a brightening mask, the next day you're doing a clay mask, because there's all these different types of masks, right? So why would you don't need to do that every day though. But yeah, once or twice a week for your mask and your exfoliators. And some masks have now combined to exfoliators. So you could also get those too, where it's like you put it on, you let it dry, and then after you let it dry, you get the water, and then you start to move it around like an exfoliator, and it breaks down into this exfoliating product and starts to exfoliate as well. So there's so much to do. But for you, what I would say is just start with a simple enzymatic rice powder exfoliator.
Okay.
And that's what you want to do.
Well, thank you so much. I feel so armed with knowledge, and I'm going to find something and start using it, because I've been wearing a lot more makeup. And so that actually has made me kind of break out a little more often, because I'm like putting it on, washing it off, putting it on, washing it off.
Are you double cleansing?
Yes, double cleansing. And then also, around the eyes, trying to stay soft, but also whenever I use eyeliner, I do like extra massaging because it's waterproof, so it's harder to get off.
You can also use like an oil. I think we mentioned this,
right? Like oil based, which I'm having trouble finding, because so many specifically are like oil free eye makeup remover. So I'm having to specifically search for that.
Look for that, because you want to be. This is the most delicate area. The eye area is the most delicate area of your face. So you want to work that area the least, right? Unless you have like a specific tool or product that's really good to use that and gentle with that. But most people with their hands, if they're washing their face and doing their eye area with their hands, they'll get too rough. So you want to definitely be really careful with that area, because that's where your skin is the thinnest on your face. And look for that oil-free makeup, that oil makeup remover. Sephora brand has a good one. Check Clinique, I don't know if they have one. Benefit has like a cream, or they did at a time, I don't know if they still have it, they had like a cream and you put it on and you just let it sit. And sometimes that's what you have to do with your oil eyeliner eye removers, is you have to get it on that little cotton swab, and then you press it on for a little bit to let it break down the oils of the makeup. Then you start to gently start to move it away. A lot of people will take it, wet it, and then just go straight to like left, right. And it's like, no. Like let it sit on the area, let it break it down for a few seconds. Doesn't have to be long, and then work it.
Dropped in the chat, Vanilla Company. It's a cleansing balm that might help break down some of your more waterproof makeup.
Okay. I am copying and pasting all of these into my notes.
Also, if you need help, let me know.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's always good just to soak the knowledge up in like one kind of fell swoop. And then usually what happens with me, it's like, what's stuck, after I'm done, I'm like, what do I remember?
It's a great way to process it.
Do you have a Quincy, do you have a theme for today's episode? We always try to connect the makeup.
Donzell with the makeup to the movie. Just like T'Challa had to slough off his family history to get to the truth, we exfoliate our faces to remove dead skin cells and remove and expose our fresh faces.
Yay! Very nice. I also thought that exfoliating is much like how they bury themselves in the dirt and in the snow to access that different plane. So exfoliating is like accessing the different plane of your skin. So that was my attempt at a theme. So that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Donzell, for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have someone who such an award-winning, illustrious guest with us today. Who does everything. Where can people find you, or do you have any specific items you would like to plug?
You can find me on Instagram. To be honest, I have not really been active on social media. It's been so great, but I got to get back out there because people are always like, where can we find you? You can find me on Instagram at just_Donzell. That's JUST_DONZELL. So find me at Instagram, just_Donzell. And if you are a hot single guy and you're interested, then you are welcome to slide into my DMs.
Oh, dang.
If you are a casting director and you're interested in casting me, you can slide into my DMs. If you are a wealthy millionaire and you're thinking about becoming my sponsor or my sugar daddy, you can slide into my DMs.
If you're a prince, legit prince with a castle,
slide into my DMs.
And then sell us the rights to your story so we can write that movie for Netflix.
Oh, yes.
Well, thank you so much again. And if you'd like to reach out to us or find out more about Marvel Makeup, you can follow us on all social media at Marvel Makeup, or you can email us at marvelmakeuppod@gmail.com. Please rate and review and subscribe wherever you find your podcasts.
And please give us 5 stars so that our Asian moms will know that we're actually pretty entertaining.
Yeah. And
that you're doing 110%.
Exactly. We are, even though it's mathematically impossible.
Mathematically impossible.
Well, thank you, everyone. Catch you next time on Marvel and Makeup. Bye. Marvel Makeup is hosted and produced by Quincy Cho and Kay Kanapu. Quincy is an actor, writer based in Los Angeles, California. Kay is a writer-performer for Filipino AF and an alum of the CBS Diversity Sketch Showcase. You can follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Quincy Dinosaur and at Kay Kanapu.
The music for Marvel and Makeup was composed by Clarence Yap, and our artwork was designed by Patty Lin. You can find them on Instagram at Clarence_Yap and at pattylin.jpg. See our show notes for even more info.
Marvel Makeup is also a member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a network of Asian American hosted podcasts. Please check out our fellow Potluck pods by going to the website podcastpotluck.com.
Hello, I'm Phil Yu, and I'm the host of All the Asians on Star Trek, the podcast in which I interview all the Asians on Star Trek. I'm talking to actors, writers, directors, stunt people, background extras. All the Asians on Star Trek. Find out more at alltheasiansonstartrek.com. Part of the Potluck Podcast Collective. Live long and prosper.
And then I'm going to talk us up like we might actually be at a show, but waiting. Okay. Are you good, Quincy?
Yeah, sorry. Maple knows you're on. Dee Dee. I think she knows.
Oh my gosh. Hi, Maple.
She insisted.
She knows my voice.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to say, coming to the stage, Quincy Cho.
Oh, wait. No, this is really bad. Okay. Ow. Oh my God. Sorry.
Okay.
That was my dog.